right, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to make results retardedly easy. Literally 3 things. I've talked about this a ton on my social media. I'm going to talk about it a little bit here in this video as well. Should be able to keep this pretty short. 3 things. You want to get shredded, you want to get lean, you want to get jacked. I don't care. You want to build an elite physique. You literally only need 3 things. It comes down to 3 things. Everybody overcomplicates this. Nutrition, training, steps. Okay? Now, a lot of people will be like, you don't need to track steps. Well, whatever. I'm sure a lot of people have their opinions on literally what I just said there, but it actually comes down to those 3 things, and I'll explain why, okay? So nutrition, that one's not very controversial. If you're going to want to get leaner, you're going to have to set up your nutrition to get you into a calorie deficit. You can use the MacroIntuitive Protocol, which is the diet that I use with myself and my clients. It's basically meal plan / macro based diet with 2 free meals per week that you can swap out of your regular meal plan. That's it. Very, very simple. But everything else is standard other than those 2 free meals. You could also just use any diet. I don't really care. But the point is that diet has to be set up to get you into a calorie deficit, regardless, if you're going to be getting leaner, right? Now, the macro splits and all that are what I look after for my clients. That's going to be obviously very, very important. If you're under eating protein, under eating fiber, your fat's way too low. That's a common one for a lot of people too. Obviously, it could be too high, but it's very common that it's too low. So macronutrient splits are still going to matter. So regardless, your nutrition, the macro splits have to be appropriate in the nutrition, and your calorie count total has to be enough to put you into a calorie deficit. Okay, so that is the key when it comes to nutrition. Now, second one, training. With training, your training needs to be set up to preserve muscle, because you are not going to be getting jacked and building a ton of muscle when you're losing fat. This is all through the lens of losing fat and getting leaner, okay? Subtle changes here, but very important ones if you are in a position of maintenance or a surplus where you're trying to build your physique or whatever your other goals are, strength, performance, whatever. But in regards to fat loss, your training needs to be set up so that it is preserving your current muscle mass. You will build some non-zero amount of muscle, but it's going to be negligible. It's going to be very insignificant. So it's better just to think of it like, I'm going in, I'm crushing it. I need to keep my proximity of failure very, very close, and I need to keep intensity very high so that I can actually stimulate the muscle enough to preserve it. So that's what you want to think about. I need to preserve my muscle while I'm actually cutting, because if you're cutting, you're in, like what I was saying before, your nutrition's already set up to put you into a calorie deficit. That is by definition a catabolic state. If you're in a catabolic state, your body's just going to break down tissues at will, everything. So you want to set things up so that it's breaking down the tissues you want. That's fat tissue. And then keeping the tissues you don't want to break down. That's muscle, okay? So there's a lot of things that go into that, but your training is one of those things. And if we can keep our proximity to failure close, we can keep our intensity high, that is going to help to stimulate our current muscle mass enough to preserve it, okay? That's the main thing that training needs to do while you are cutting. And then there's a lot of other things, like obviously, like depending on someone's individual situation around like physical limitations or enjoyability. Like, I mean, if you don't like your training, you're probably not going to do it consistently. So that kind of sucks. So you need to consider enjoyability as well. You also want to consider, fatigue management to some extent as well. So that's going to be key too when you're selecting exercises. But overall, that's the main thing when it comes down to training, okay? Without getting too much into it. Third thing, steps. Steps is really like, you don't have to track steps. You don't. But I use it because it's quantifiable, it's measurable, and it's simple. And also it's a function and a proxy for calorie output, right? So if you like rowing, kayaking, swimming, if you like rock climbing, if you like running, if you whatever, like anything that involves movement that isn't regular weight training, then you can kind of just sub that out as far as steps. But that's what that category is meant to do. It is meant to be a proxy for regular calorie output. If I'm regularly walking 12,000 steps, which is my current target, the same one I did when I was cutting, my total calorie output, my total daily energy expenditure, my TDEE, is going to be higher than if I regularly walk 5,000, or if I'm inconsistent with my steps, right? So that's why we want to consistently have a step target. And that is going to be absolutely key, because the idea here is like how these all 3 work together is basically nutrition is going to be set up so that you don't overeat. And so your nutrition is capped so that you can put yourself into a calorie deficit. Your steps are set up so that we can keep the calorie output high so that keeps us in a calorie deficit without having to starve ourselves with the nutrition. So they work very symbiotically, right? And then the training is kind of separate. It's just there to preserve training or preserve muscle mass while we're actually in a catabolic state in the calorie deficit. So that's all you need to do. Everything else is extra. So supplements, lifestyle, routines, sleep, hormones, they're all important. When I say extra, I don't mean they're not important. Those are crucial. But you do not actually need those in the short term to lose weight, okay? If you're in a fat loss phase, those are all the sprinkles on top. A lot of people focus way too much on some of the other things, which are still very important, but they don't actually move the needle for what they're looking to see happen, right? So a good example is like you're focused way too much on supplements or even hormones, and you want to get leaner. It's like, have you considered having a regular step target every single day and hitting it no matter what, or maybe setting up your nutrition so that you're in a calorie deficit every single day and then being consistent with it no matter what? Like those are the needle movers. That's why it literally comes down to those three things: nutrition, steps, training, okay? And then everything else is sprinkled in. So that's basically it. There's nothing really else to say about that unless you're going to go into the nitty gritty, but I wanted to make this video ridiculously simple for you, and that's all it is. When I'm building out a plan for a client, if I'm building out my own plan for whatever goal I'm chasing, it always comes down to like those three levers, and then how we personalize that to each person, and then we go to like the subcategories: supplements, lifestyle, routines, sleep, hormones, whatever else, and then we sprinkle those in to fill in the gaps, and that's where we can kind of optimize someone's plan. But you got to start with the three big rocks, the three big levers: nutrition, steps, and training. If you like this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below if you didn't like it, and we can argue in the comment section together. It'll be fun.